will be by Dr. Santosh Honawar. Because of his busy schedule, he is not able to join, but on his behalf, I will be sharing his video. He has sent his video.
Good evening. I thank Dr. Rajesh Joshi for having me part of his course. I'll be talking about manuscript rejection. Rejection is a norm in academic publishing.
I hope screen is visible.
In fact, major journals with high
impact it is.
Reject about 70 to 80% of submissions and maybe even more. Rejection can happen at any stage of journal processing. It could be at the stage of initial evaluation by the senior editor or by the technical staff or associate or assistant editors, and at the stage of reviewers, and even beyond review at the stage of re-review following revision. At the level of technical check, the manuscript is generally checked by a junior or an assistant editor or the technical staff of the journal, and the manuscript may be sent back to the author for certain modifications. Once that is returned back, editor and the team examine the manuscript for initial editorial decision, and the decision is largely based on if the manuscript type is correct, is the language appropriate, is the formatting been as per the instructions to the authors, is the manuscript complete.
Sir, please unmute. Rajesh sir, please unmute.
Fulfilled, the manuscript is bound to be rejected. Otherwise, it can be sent for peer review. There are certain reasons why a manuscript may be rejected unrelated to the manuscript quality. The first of which is manuscript journal mismatch. Which means that if a journal which does not publish case reports is submitted one such, then there is a immediate rejection. It is not within the scope of the journal. For example, for a purely clinical journal, if you submit a purely basic science article, then it may not be within the immediate scope of the journal. Journals are sometimes very busy and they may have space constraints and they may be dealing with very high submission volume and may have a very low acceptance rate. So despite the manuscript being reasonably good, they may have to reject it at the initial stage itself to facilitate the author to submit it elsewhere to a different journal rather than wasting time in the review process. Or they may have had a similar submission in the immediate past, exactly similar theme or an article on a similar topic. Reasons related to manuscript quality are absence of IRB approval, or if it's a clinical trial which is not registered with an appropriate clinical trial authority, the manuscript is not compliant with the journal style, there is poor writing or organization of the manuscript may be obsolete, lack originality, or its results may lack significance. There may be poor rationale. It may be irrelevant to the general readership and may not be a priority to the journal at that point in time. The methodology may be flawed. Interpretation of the results may be poor, and the statistical tools that have been applied may not be optimal, and there may not be any background or basic translational study. For example, if it's a new device or a drug that's being tried without any background at all, which is published, then that becomes slightly dubious. And it is also understandable that journals typically want to present groundbreaking new research in their manuscripts, and in the absence of which the journals may not find it attractive enough to publish, because they are also selfish in seeking good quality manuscripts to propagate their own impact. So if the manuscript is not rejected at the stage of initial screening, it goes for peer review. The peer review is defined as the evaluation of work by one or more people of similar competence to the producers of the work. So they are at a level of similar competence and similar knowledge level as the authors of the work. A couple of them could be lower, a couple of them could be at the same level, and a couple of them could be higher. So it follows a spectrum. It's not always that each manuscript goes to the top-notch reviewers. Some of them may go to junior reviewers, and some of them may go to very senior reviewers. And there's always a combination of reviewers that are recruited by the journal. It's actually a form of self-regulation of the journals. And in academia, peer review is often used to determine an academic paper's suitability for publication. This is the process that each journal follows. Now, some of the core values of peer review are that it has to be fair, there has to be some confidentiality that has to be maintained, it has to be impartial, and it has to be subject to expert assessment. This is very important. It also means that there is some security to the data. There's efficiency in terms of number of days or weeks in which it is reviewed, transparency of the review process, and finally, integrity. So core values of peer review are mostly maintained by the journals, and the timeline is also maintained. So what does peer review do? It assesses the suitability of the manuscript for publication, and if it is found fairly suitable, then the reviewers try to suggest measures to improve the quality of the journal. In terms of interpretation of the results, there might be a slightly different way of doing it, reasoning for the results or the findings that the manuscript has mentioned, maybe a better way of presenting data. It is generally constructive, slightly critical sometimes, but constructive. And these may actually help improve the manuscript. So a peer reviewer fills a questionnaire of this sort. It may be different for different journals, but basically this asks the peer reviewer, does the manuscript contain new and significant information to justify publication? This is yes or no, or you may be able to elaborate slightly on it, like in the form of a report. Is the problem significant and concisely stated? Are the experimental and theoretical methods described comprehensively? Are the interpretations and conclusions justified by the results? This is very important. You have to justify interpretations and conclusions based on the results. Is the abstract concise? Are the literature citations adequate? Or if you have left out any major works that has been published earlier, not deliberately, but maybe an oversight, is the language acceptable? Then as far as the structure, they talk about the length of the article, number of permitted tables, number of permitted figures, and then there are 4 sets of recommendations, except minor revision, major revision, and rejection. So apart from this, there is also a referee report which goes through almost the same questions in a slightly more elaborate manner. There are 3 general outcomes. Acceptance without modification is very rare. Revision is one of the most common decisions. Major revision with re-review, which means that there is still a scope for rejection. This happens, rejection can happen following re-review in about half the cases, 50%. Major revision without a re-review, that means that your manuscript is almost certain to be accepted. This has an acceptance rate of about 80 to 90%. If you're not able to revise it because of certain constraints that you have had with the study, then there is rejection. Minor revision, you're almost certain that your manuscript is going to go through. Now, when you are asked for a major revision, you have to very carefully consider reviewers' comments and approach the issue with as an opportunity to develop your paper into as best as it can be. It has to be a very positive outlook and a constructive outlook. Referees' comments should not be seen as negative criticisms, and you should not get irritated about these. It could be because of lack of depth of understanding of the referee of your manuscript, not because of anything else, but because of the limitations in your own explanation or the depth to which you have explained a particular concept. It should be taken as a positive opportunity to revise your manuscript and make it even better. Mm-hmm. You have to actually take each issue that the referee has raised. In fact, you're supposed to make 3 columns. In the first, you have to mention exactly what the referee has mentioned. In the middle column, you're supposed to mention what you have done to address it. In the third column, you have to mention where exactly in the manuscript, in terms of page number, line number, etc., have you incorporated the new changes, and also highlight the new changes in the manuscript and submit it. so that it's easy for the reviewer to go through your revised manuscript and track what has been done and arrive at a decision. Since your response may go back to the reviewers, you should be very polite and constructive even when you respond. Finally, it is all aimed at making your manuscript better. If this is the shape of the manuscript when you initially submit, after peer review and revision, it may become fully loaded and more effective. So even at this stage of review, the reasons for rejection remain almost the same as editorial rejection, such as technical and scientific issues, objectives being unclear or unimportant, unclear presentation, absence of novelty or originality, most important being conclusions do not support the data, results are not important, results are not interesting, and it involves a significant amount of propaganda or not interesting, and important work of others include also constitute some of the reasons for rejection. The most important reason for rejection is ethical issue. Like if they find a lot of plagiarism. In any case, rejection does not mean that it is the end of the road. It definitely opens up a lot of newer avenues. So what do you do when you have a rejection? One way of doing it is to challenge every rejection. Generally, you're not supposed to challenge every rejection if you find the reasons that are given for rejection are reasonable. If not, very occasionally you can challenge the rejection, especially if you still feel or if your co-authors still feel that your study is of importance, it has potential impact, and it has some novelty which has been somehow missed by the editors and referees. And or there are factual errors in the referee reports that has led to rejection. It may not be because of anything else. It could be because of misinterpretation of your data. It could be because some of your data has been ignored or it's not been properly evaluated by a particular referee. So if that has led to rejection, then you can highlight it and appeal to the editor. And in such a situation, the process is to assign the manuscript to a new set of referees without the baggage of prior review and get it reassessed in a very transparent and a fair manner. That's always done. So the changes which are suggested by the reviewers, especially those changes which are reasonable, and then submit to another journal so that you have already improved the manuscript and improved its chance to get accepted by a new journal by making these changes. The fourth option is simply to move on, and that is like accepting defeat. And for every article, there is a journal that you can find to publish in. So it is never the end of the road. And if you try long enough or sincerely hard enough, you will be able to publish your manuscript in one journal or the other. But you should not wait on it too much. If you get a rejection, maybe by the next 24 to 48 hours, you should have made those changes if the changes are reasonably easy and have submitted it to a new journal. If you sit on it for months together, you probably forget, what to do with it, or you may have moved on with the rest of the things in your life that that the manuscript may go into a trash. So it's a lot of waste of time and energy and resources if your manuscript is unpublished or remains unpublished. You can definitely find a reasonably good journal to publish it if it's not the first or the second journal. Happy